should we go ahead and just start over, start fresh?
Yeah, it might be easier. Well, no. What did we last talk about? We talked about drones. We can pick up there, I think.
Okay.
And then
Um,
just splice them together.
it was pretty clear cut, I think. Let's see. Say something else.
Who's who?
Either way, I just make sure I have levels bouncing. All right, we're good.
Yeah.
So I think Donovan will keep your news for kind of like last. So Wes, what have you been up to this week?
Uh, quite a bit of little things here. Back to the drone thing. I got a new drone. It's a small, tiny FPV drone, like what you referenced earlier, that you can fly with goggles. I've got the goggles here. I haven't tried them. I haven't charged anything. I'm looking to try it. George from Technically Woodworking, and our friends at When Geeks Craft, Nicole and Turi, they also picked up some little drones as well. So we're hoping to fly them all together.
Wes, there's a huge amount of noise on your end.
Really?
Yeah. Whenever you start talking, the noise kicks in.
Do you have all of your 3D printers going on at once?
Hi. How was this? Better?
Hi.
Same.
I haven't changed anything. Nothing's running. Let me
It's really prominent today.
It's funny how like it's gone when you don't talk, and then when you start talking, it's all the background.
It's a Discord kicking on and off.
Is it?
All right, using a different mic. How's this?
Can't hear you right now.
Really?
You're muted.
How's this?
Well, it's better. I can hear your voice.
I'm using this microphone now instead of this microphone. Is it better?
The noise is a lot less. It's really kind of weird.
Man, we're just struggling. Struggle bus today. All right, I'm back with the other microphone. Still crap?
It's not crap. It's really loud. It's louder than what we have in the past. I mean, it's not gonna break the episode at all. But
Yeah.
It's like shh.
Only when I talk you can hear it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's
Is your gain up too high on your mic?
I wonder if it's finally picking up the server.
Oh, it does sound like fans, which is why I asked if your 3D printers.
It's weird
were...
that you never mentioned that before, though. That's the thing. Okay. I'll just use this then. Is it still noisy?
Do you hear it?
It.
I mean, you can see it on your input sensitivity, the little vibrato down.
with the headset, you can hear it, but it's a lot less. I can make it work either way. Just
I don't understand what's happening. Welcome to the Making Geek podcast.
Yeah. Okay. It's still bad, huh?
no, actually, you sound better.
I didn't change anything. Okay.
I swear it sounds a little bit better.
Okay. I'm just gonna go with it. So. No.
Okay.
Okay. So, you asked me what I've been up to.
Yeah. So you're talking about you got a new drone,
Okay.
the goggles.
Yep. So, I have been doing a couple things. This is still bad.
No, I'm laughing because we're trying to keep it going.
Oh my god, it's hard. It's hard. Okay.
This is all gonna get spliced
Oh man,
together.
he's not gonna edit a
right?
damn thing. That's what he does.
Oh,
No.
That's what he does.
No.
That's it. He's like, I'll fix it in post. He doesn't fix anything.
It's the entertainment value.
Uh
Too
huh.
funny
Yeah,
to
you
take out.
lying son of a biscuit eater. All right. So, this week I've been 3D printing a lot. I received another drone in the mail, which is the second drone that I own. Going back to the drone topic, it's a what they call a whoop. Crap, what is it called? Mini whoop. Anyways, it's a smaller type of drone. It's meant to be flown FPV style, so you get a pair of goggles that I also just got in the mail that I haven't even tried on or powered on or anything. And myself and George from Technically Woodworking and Nicole and Turi from When Geeks Craft, we're all gonna fly ours around in their new house, which is kind of cool. We all kind of got new ones or upgraded the ones that we had and stuff. So we're
To get that sweet FPV video of the new house.
yeah. Unfortunately, the drone that I have, it's not like an HD version or a digital version, so the visual quality looks like a friggin' VHS tape. Like it looks like you're tracking. You need to adjust it, but it's I don't know. I think it's just how it is when you're not spending hundreds of dollars, which is fine. Besides that, I have been 3D printing a lot since we talked last week. I didn't record the hours as diligently as I hoped I would, but I probably have between 150 to 200 like machine hours of printing down in like a week, over a week and a half. And here's a foot from the little guy. So I'm 3D printing a pit droid, which is popularized in the Phantom Menace, but also in the Mandalorian series. He's like the little droids that work on the spacecraft and the pod racers and stuff that have like the little eye on the front. They get booped around and they're kind of obnoxious somewhat, but I think they would make a great addition to the shop as like a little helper. You can adjust all the different joints and stuff and pose them and have them hold like, I don't know, nothing practical, but have them hold like a wrench or something during a video. I need friends in the shop is what it comes down to, because I have no windows here and my only interaction is through like a screen. So I just want someone to talk to. And my dog Loki, he just howls at me when I talk to him, so that's not really helpful either. Yeah, I've just been 3D printing and sanding a lot. Like I've got a lot of white PLA dust all over me, but it's a lot of fun.
So the droid, you said it's posable. So is it done with
Yeah.
like mechanical retention with the pins or whatever that are on the joints?
Yeah, they're somewhat pressure fitted, and also they use like furniture bolts and stuff, like basically
Okay.
like like not lag screws, but just hardware that are used in furniture assembly. Strangely, they just have like hex used like a hex driver to put them together and stuff. So they're just like tensioned with that. Nothing
Okay,
too
cool.
special, but they're 1-to-1 scale. I got them from a Etsy shop. I think it's called like a Droid Division. If you search for that on Facebook, there's a Facebook group, and also on Etsy. They're kind of pricey. They're not free, but the guy who makes them, he's like the go-to place to get like humanoid style droids, like not R2D2 style droids or other non-humanoidish kind of ones. And he makes like full scale battle droids and K2SO and like all kinds of more obscure ones as well. And they're really a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to decorating the downstairs with some of these guys.
So I'm curious, especially for you.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of like what's your decision making process for whether you're going to model something versus buy the model? Because I mean you're more than capable of actually making building that model in 3D.
Yeah, I considered that, and most everything that I've ever 3D printed, I have gone through the trouble of modeling it. Honestly, I don't know. I wanted to get a little more instant gratification from this particular build. Not to say that I'm not going to 3D model anything in the future, because I'm planning on doing some Voltron lines that I've actually modeled one of the heads probably 90% of the way done. It's been a couple years now, but since I started on it. But I don't know. It's a great question. I don't really have a great answer for it.
I'm just curious because I mean I struggle with that all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, there's all this stuff that I want to do and print out,
Yeah.
but I also want to 3D model it,
One
which
of
is why
yeah.
which is why it never gets done.
Sure, sure. One of the other big draws for this one particular, and there's this other droid group that I'm in now, is the community that has kind of sprung forth around his models, and it's sort of like his support forum kind of thing. But also, people just show like their interesting like paint schemes that they've put on them and their weathering techniques, and like he actually not just puts the files out there just to sell, but there's a community thing going on as well. So like, I'm sure I could 3D print something and put it on Replica Prop Forum, but or their Facebook page. But there doesn't seem to be as much of a tight knit community for that specifically. Like I've posted things on there, and they're just like, "Oh, that's cool," or they'll just rag you for some weird little detail that no one's gonna care
They're
about.
a little bit elitist.
They are, yeah. And this one's like more tight knit. And actually, there's a couple of people that are in it that I happen to know through other avenues, not in the maker group.
Because of course you would, Wes. I mean,
Because of
everybody.
course.
Well, there's a guy that
7
I
degrees of Wes.
sort of worked with that. He worked at Epic at the same time I worked at Epic, and so I never actually worked with him, but it's sort of just another connection. So I don't know. It's another group of people to interact with because I need more people apparently.
I was just curious about the modeling thing because I meant to ask you that before, but forgot. I thought I'd do it
Yeah,
now.
that's a great point.
So, I'm still not working on I'm not directly working on a video, but I'm doing testing. I'm still lasering some tiles, but most of my time has been spent cleaning up my garage and trying to get it set up in a little bit more of an official makerspace. So I have my Glowforge set, which the videos I'm still kind of planning on it, but I'm gonna be building cabinets pretty much all around that area of my garage. If anybody's seen any of the videos I filmed in there, I have kind of like one long blank white wall that I'm planning to put cabinets up and trying to get more things off the floor. And then also building in some visual interest for a background for videos and stuff, since it seems like more often than not, I'm ending up in there with 3D printing or laser cutting or stuff like that. So it's kind of a planning stage and still trying to figure some things out, along with some other things I have to do. I have to replace the lighting in my garage, and I don't like electrical work, although I can do some basic stuff like replacing a fixture. So I've been kind of dragging my feet on that, but I'm gonna have to be doing that soon. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more of a makerspace / studio for filming with appropriate lighting. Right now in the ceiling, I have 4 lighting fixtures. 3 of the 4 are out, and they're the old fluorescent tubes. And so I have like 2 fluorescent tubes that work, and that's all the lighting I have in my garage right now. And I'm debating whether or not to take them out and just put in the full LED panels, or do the trick where I'm not even sure how to do it, but bypass the ballast, because I think the ballasts are out. Bypass the ballast, and then you can put LED tubes in there. So I'm trying to figure out what to do.
You basically described my shop. I have a full 2-part like fluorescent panel. Where is it at? I'm sure that one's completely out over there. Yeah, and then I have this one's missing one, and yeah, I went through the same problem like deciding about the LED stuff, and I found that when I was like using different cameras, I would get like a lot of strobing. So I don't really care. And I'm sure there's a quick, easy fix for it, but even when I'm doing stuff on Twitch with the light, like the webcam, I was getting
Up your
strobing.
frame rate.
Yeah, I don't really have that ability though.
Oh, you don't?
With like a camera, yeah, but like the webcam, I don't know. I couldn't find anything that would work. I don't know.
I think it depends on the LED lights that you get. Some of the newer ones are operating at a higher frequency that you don't see it. You know, I don't think they're as bad as remember like the old Christmas lights?
Yes.
The first LED Christmas lights?
I had to return them.
These used to hurt my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were really, really bad. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I still don't know which direction to go yet. I know I want LED lighting, but I might have to get like one panel and test it out. Well, we'll see. So
Well,
I heard Donovan has some news to share with everybody.
What?
Are we going to talk about that now?
That's up
Well,
to
I mean,
you.
it's kind of what you're doing, right?
It's your show, man.
I guess it does incorporate what I've been working on this week, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I have gone full time as a maker, which is terrifying and
Yay.
terrifying. So today I uploaded a video of the mini Muppet movie theater that I've been working on for a little longer than I should have been working on it, and it's kind of the kickoff point for a new adventure. At least for me, it's been a very Arrested Development day, if that makes sense. Because this morning I woke up and I was like, Michael, we're like super full of confidence, like it's gonna happen this time. It's gonna be great. And then I uploaded my video, and after lunch I checked on the video, the stats on the video, and all of a sudden I turned from Michael into Job, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've made a huge mistake. And then I walked away from that, turning from Job into George Michael, where I'm like, my head is hanging, and there's Charlie Brown music playing inextricably, like from the ceiling, as I'm walking away. So it's been a very roller coaster day.
And then you blew yourself.
Yeah. Oh, such a good show.
Then you went to work for Army, right?
For Army, yeah.
That's like my favorite. He's my favorite.
Got it in Army, Mom. Yeah. Mother.
I think
I'm the only one that hasn't seen that show.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
It's worth it.
Yes, it is. But I have a lot going on. My plan, as of the moment, is to start putting out 2 videos a week, probably on Sundays and Thursdays. And so I got my Thursday video done today, and I've already started working on my video for Sunday, potentially. I don't know. Everything is in flux right now because this is everything is brand new. I'm going from, a hobby of, hey, this is fun, I like doing this, let's make YouTube videos out of this, to, all right, I need to figure out how to make money with this and support my family. Which is a totally different mindset and shift and focus, and yeah, it's been a trip, and it's only been like a day.
Go watch Donovan's new video. Tell your friends about it.
Yep.
And have them tell their friends. Donovan needs some exponential growth here.
Oh gosh, it's so nerve-wracking. It's like the stock market. That's the only way I think I could describe it, is when numbers are up. You're like,
Donovan's channel is Dogecoin.
Yeah, it's the cryptocurrency in the last 48 hours.
Oh my gosh. Which is why I can't buy a computer. Thank you, miners.
Yeah, that's an actual serious problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are we gonna
figure out how to steer into the topic here that we had planned?
Steer into it. Speaking of changing course, we had a message thread on our stay-at-home dads geek, which I've been a part of this group for a while, and now I finally feel official. Like, I was a card-carrying member, but now I'm an official card-carrying member. I could say it without reservation. Anyways, so we had a discussion going on at the Stay-at-Home Dad Geeks Facebook group, posing the question as to when we feel is appropriate times to expose our kids to things like video games, R-rated movies, stuff like that, more adult stuff. So we thought we'd take that topic and kind of run with it.
Yeah, I've always been curious about other people's perspective on this. Mainly because my wife and I were talking about this last night, and then I think that we've probably, my wife and I probably shelter our kids a little bit more than we thought we were going to, in terms of content. And it's really awkward. I think my kids are older than your kids right now at this point. My son will be a teenager next year, which is a really weird thought. so his friends, I mean, because he started junior high this year, because he goes to a school that's sixth, seventh, eighth as part of junior high. Although he barely got to experience much of it this first year. But a lot of his friends are already being allowed to watch more, what I would call like more adult content. One example that came up in the last couple of months is that one of his friends watched The Matrix and, wanted my son to watch it. It's a great movie. It's awesome. All this action and stuff. And I basically told my son no. And some people so I know that some people agree with it, some people don't. Some people see the violence. They don't really see anything else wrong with it, because some people put a higher value on sexual content and keeping that away from kids. And some people think the violence is worse, and it is kind of like an individual thing. But for that movie in particular and a lot of others, I told my son, look, I don't think you're quite ready for it yet, and I think you'll appreciate it more when you're just a little bit older, and especially because that one means a little bit something more to me too. And I think if you watch it without some more of that context, you're gonna be missing a huge part of it. And then there's the violence and everything else on it that I'd rather you wait for. And the thing that I've told a lot of people regarding this is, what's the hurry? And that's always been kind of my stance on some of that more adult content. But I'm really curious, you guys, how do you view it with your kids?
It's a constant, well, not constant. It seems to be a constant thought for me, because I'm like you kind of alluded to. Not only am I concerned or cognizant of the content, as far as like sexual content or violence or what have you, or language, but also I want to have like the framework and like the experience to be a curated experience. Like when I finally sat Samantha down to like, all right, this is the time you're gonna watch Jurassic Park. Like I was like so excited because I've been waiting for her whole life to watch that. It's like one of my favorite movies, and she was sufficiently into it. She loved it, but I was hesitant because for many years, because I remembered how old I was when I watched it. That had an influence on it, but also just the spectacle of it, and the amount of pop culture references that like spawned off of that movie, and just things that built on that foundation of that movie. There's so many things and I just wanted her to like you were saying, just have really appreciate it more. And I think she did. I'm glad that I did wait. But then, of course, I really want Grant to see it, and he's much young. He's like 3 years behind her, and I can't have her watch it, at 10, and then like, oh, okay, Grant, you can watch it at 7. Like it's sort of like I want him to watch it, and he seems to react well to like scarier or more intense things. He doesn't seem to get freaked out like I used to get freaked out at things at certain ages, which is great. But also, I want to, like I say, curate that experience. So that's one thing that probably holds more weight to me than a lot of other people. Like Back to the Future, maybe I'm building it up to be more than these movies are, but like Back to the Future was another example I waited to show Samantha. And then also Karate Kid, and she loves Karate Kid. And Grant, I had him watch that one because that one is not very bad from a lot of other perspectives. But I didn't recall when I had them watch the second Back to the Future movie. That movie is got some language in it. Like I didn't remember that was as rough in the language category as it was. And like a lot of the PG movies from back in the day are somewhat questionable, like because they didn't have the 13 rating back then. Yeah, and I understand that from a perspective, but sometimes you're blinded by your nostalgia and you don't remember. And also as a kid, like a lot of those things go over your head, and they can still go over the kid's head now, right? But as you're watching it, you hope that the things that will go over their head will go over their head, and there's no guarantee. With all these like innuendo things, like especially with Back to the Future, like there's a whole other subplot to that. You're like, oh man, this is a really messed up movie. Like if you really sit and think about it, but that's from the adult perspective, right? But I remember watching it as a kid in the theater with my uncle. Like I friggin' loved it. Like that set the stage for all kinds of love of like time travel, and like it really got your gears turning, as far as the plot and everything else. But yeah, nostalgia has like a great is great, but it's also has like blinders for me. Like I forget how bad, or I don't know how bad something was from different perspectives because I'm looking at it from a different angle than I was when I first saw
I
it.
think we're pretty much. I think we're pretty much in line, Wes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, some movies from back then. Yeah, even though they say they're PG or not PG. I had a friend that he was when he was
That's all
dating his
relative, though.
wife. When he was dating his wife, he was over at their house one day and he's like, "Oh, there's this really great movie called Airplane. You guys haven't seen it? You need to see it." And his girlfriend's parents, super religious, very conservative, and he puts an Airplane. Well, if you haven't watched Airplane in a while, there's stuff in there and there's nudity in there and it's PG. And he was
80s
like,
were
I've
awesome.
never been so embarrassed in my life. Like, he's like, I don't know how she's married to me now.
Those were the good old days.
The good old days.
They were.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
It's like R's now. You can't tell if it's going to be a hard R or a soft R because there's a breadth, a
there
very
is.
wide spectrum when it comes to what is R. Just like back in the day, there was a huge breadth of what is a PG.
I remember there was a movie called The Invisible Kid, and it sounds friendly about a teen that finds this or develops a potion that makes himself invisible. Or my cousin and I watching it, and we used to love it because there was nudity. There's a locker room scene with the girls, and I loved that film. But I probably saw it when I was 10. The funny thing is that I probably would not let my son watch it.
yeah.
Actually, there's one extremely funny scene towards the end of the movie when the kid's sitting on top of the basketball hoop. He's invisible. Wes, do you remember that scene?
It sounds super familiar, but
He gets his genitals caught in the net.
I think yeah. Huh.
Yeah, so the 80s were fun.
I have never seen that movie.
Like even
That's the thing about
yeah.
like, yeah, me and my wife is like we don't watch a lot of R-rated movies. Like we ourselves don't consume a lot of adult content. Like even books, we tend to read like YA and kids books. Now, like having 3 little kids helps with that. But I mean, even just me and her, we ourselves don't consume that. So when it comes to thinking about like when we feel like our kids will be ready for that kind of content, like we don't consume it ourselves. So it's never. I don't. No.
Yeah.
I mean, there are exceptions because it's kind of like an unspoken rule. It is like a rule in our house, but there are like granted exceptions that I make for stuff. Like I have a copy of like 1917 and Blade Runner 2049 and The Fountain and movies that cinematically are like are masterpieces. They are phenomenal movies, and even though they're rated R, like I want them as part of my collection just because of the art in them kind of supersedes what content may be questionable. But even then, like they'd have to be a lot older before I'd even consider showing them something like that.
Yeah. What about something like a Schindler's List? Like my daughter has been
I haven't even
pretty.
seen that one.
You haven't seen that one?
Mm-mm.
Like my daughter's been pretty into like for the last couple of years like historical like nonfiction books, like going over like different events. Like even she has a book about 9/11 even, and like the Holocaust and like Anne Frank and all these different things. And I don't know, I'm just curious. Like that one's pretty intense of a movie. It's kind of boring probably for a 10-year-old, maybe. I don't know.
It's a
Well,
tough
there's
call on some of those.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of implications into something like Schindler's List that
Yeah.
they would not understand.
Pretty heavy.
I don't think it's even entirely about understanding, but some of the imagery and the impact of that, both good and bad.
Sure.
I mean, there's a positive aspect of that too, just having the appreciation for the gravity of the situation. But that also might be one of those instances of what's the rush.
Right. Right.
There's definitely time for that. But there's also other ones that might have a similar effect, like although I haven't seen it. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is another film that was in that same era.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's another one too with this Italian guy as the lead, and I can't remember the name of it offhand. I used to show it to my students, in class.
Oh.
The guy used to go like, Principesha, but
Yeah.
I don't remember. Not Work for Life. It's something else. It might come to me, but yeah, there's a lot of options as far as that go. And for the movies, I think they're in. And Donovan, you were talking about this before about R having like this huge breadth of what makes R. Because like my wife and I were talking specifically again about the Matrix thing. Oh, what is actually wrong with it? Well, other than being hyper violent. Why is it rated R? It's probably language and the imagery of the violence, for the most part, because there's no nudity per se. There's, not in the first one. The second one has a lot more suggestive type themes and imagery, but the first one is purely just the intensity of the violence. Compare that to...
And it was unique back then.
When it was.
You take something like... What's the Keanu Reeves ones that are super popular? John Wick?
Yeah.
Like John Wick and compared to...
Right.
It's not even the same level. Like, it's funny because we don't go back and re-rate old movies by today's standards. But yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
The whole rating system is really strange, anyways. There was a documentary about it one time about the rating system and how those ratings actually happen and the people that are actually selected to make those ratings. It's definitely not a consistent process. And the things that are asked, that I've heard on several occasions, like somebody will take a film and they're just basically horrific. Like it happens with Kevin Smith a lot because of his humor in his films, where I'll take it to the ratings board like, oh no, this is an NC-17. Of course, he doesn't want NC-17 because those don't do as well in the theater. Like, well, if you have to take out this word, you can only have this many F words, and you can't see this one thing. And it's, and I've heard of them doing stuff like that, so that takes the attention, and then something else that is really probably equally as bad gets to stay in the movie.
Right.
So it's definitely not a consistent process at all. At least right now, and Wes, I think you might have made reference to this before. IMDb and what's the other? Common Sense Media.
Yeah, that's a go-to.
Have really good tools for having a better evaluation of films for parents, and we use it on a regular basis even now.
Yeah. Yeah, even something as seemingly innocent as Neverending Story. Like I had them sit down and watch that with them like a year ago, and I hadn't seen it since I was a little kid, but I remember loving it, and it's got like a lot of pop culture stuff that, for our ages, like that was a very common experience to watch that movie, growing up. And I completely forgot about like the big-breasted statues at the end. Like whoa, I don't remember these giant statues. Do you remember, what I'm talking about at the very end?
Oh
yeah. Yeah, I had no recollection of that whatsoever. Why I didn't have a recollection of that is also a question I have. Like maybe I don't know. But, and they didn't have any reaction to it other than like, oh, those statues are weird or something, I don't know. And it's seemingly innocent, but it's just, again, with the nostalgia blocking.
So, here's a question I have for the two of you, and I have a feeling that we're going to have some different perspectives on this. But do you think with some of this, because we're parents and it's a different time and place, that we are being overly sensitive to some of this stuff?
Probably. I watched RoboCop way too young.
Right.
But I turned out okay.
I'm talking about the stuff that I saw when I was a kid that I should not have even been near. Just recently, as a family, we watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That one is a very interesting one because of the one character and the way that she's drawn. Mm-hmm. But my wife and I had said, well, when we talk, say we don't want to overly shelter the kids. They have to get used to some imagery in some situations, and so we've slowly been allowing them to see some films we've been kind of holding off for a while. So, like you mentioned, Jurassic Park. This last year, we had our then watched Jurassic Park. Daughter didn't like it because she doesn't like anything that resembles violence or anything. My son loved it though. So,
do you think she would have loved violence if you exposed her to more violent movies earlier on? It was just is it more of like, you know what I'm saying? Not saying it's you should or shouldn't.
no.
I'm just saying
No,
from a
no. I know exactly what I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about of normalizing it more earlier on.
Sure.
Not exactly. I think she's oversensitive about it right now, just
Mm-hmm.
because she's oversensitive about it. It's more like a personality trait of my daughter right now.
Gotcha.
But the funny thing is, if there's a female lead, it doesn't bother her at all.
The empowerment kind of thing.
Yeah, she's in a very interesting stage right now.
It reminds me, for some reason, of when I first started working at Epic Games on the Gears of War series. I had never played Gears of War before I started working on Gears of War 3. And so, like, I had no idea, like, the violence that was in that game. And I was, like, a little bit shell-shocked for, like about a week, like, watching all these, like, execution animations that they have. They're super gory. Like Mortal Kombat doesn't hold a candle to the gore factor in this game. But yeah, it had, I don't know. But going back to normalization, it's interesting how that changes the perspective on content, for good or bad. But there's like a whole slew of movies that I've been waiting to show them. Like Lord of the Rings. Have you guys? You're still young, I would think, Donovan, for Lord of the Rings with your kids, or no?
Well, they've watched Lord of the Rings.
Oh, they have.
That's
Yeah, we watched it.
interesting.
Well,
That's
I
an
don't know.
extremely violent movie.
It's pretty
Yeah.
gory and like scary, I would say, but maybe. I mean, my kids are
Yeah,
watching
I
it,
guess-
but
I mean, I guess Lord of the Rings would be our exception to
Yeah.
that rule. Just
But-
because,
yeah, why though? The question.
I don't know, probably the fantasy value of it. The fact that it is fantasy, and so the realism of it is lessened than if it was like Black Hawk Down or something.
Yeah, but swords and arrows are real.
I know. But I think they understand that it's not real. Whereas like watching a movie that is depicting something that actually happened, like especially when it comes to like war movies and stuff like that, it's hard for them, especially at the age that they're at, to know if something is real. Because we'll be watching something, and my son will be like, "Is that real? Like, did that really happen? Is this real?" Like, he asks that question because like he can't always differentiate like what's what's real and what's just a movie.
like even the scene from Star Wars Episode 3 where Anakin gets everything burned off of him. Like watching that with my kids for the first time, I forgot how like visceral and like gory that part is, where he's like burning to death. Like, man, that's pretty rough. Like I don't know of any other movie that would show somebody like burning to death and like writhing in pain. And I mean, they don't show blood, but they might as well at that point. Like, he looks pretty messed up.
Yeah, a fun fantasy movie with space wizards, and now you can see somebody getting like lit on fire.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, it's crazy, but again, perspective, right? Like, I'd never watched it with a kid there, and so you're more attuned to that. And it didn't seem to
we
bother
watched
them.
Harry
but
Potter too, and that's pretty.
That is.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
I'm dark.
The Dementor
and
stuff
violent,
is pretty
but
creepy.
it's like
yeah.
magic violence.
Yeah.
People getting eviscerated, but just into clothy, wispy things instead of piles of blood.
It's
I don't
interesting the allowances that we make.
Yeah.
So like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or
Well, it's also
the
because,
Marvel
like,
movies.
Yeah.
we read these books to them, and so like they're familiar with the story and things that have happened in the story, and then to see it, in movie form, I think is a way for them to connect to that. One of our, I guess, our philosophies is that they're going to be exposed to so much bad stuff outside our home that we don't feel like there's a need to expose them to stuff like that inside our home. I don't know if that's sheltering them too much, but it's,
yeah.
I mean, like I drop my kids off at well, we used to drop our kids off at the bus stop because they used to take the bus, and sitting there listening to 5 to 9 year olds cuss like sailors. I'm like, what is happening in your home that you act like this? I don't understand. And thankfully, my, like, as far as I know, like, my kids are not like that, but I mean, they're exposed to so much crap outside. Like, why? It's hard. Why have it? Why have it in here too?
I agree with that to a point, but just to be devil's
Same
advocate,
here.
like, is it better to like curate the exposure and like explain the meanings behind things instead of having it come from like left field from like a schoolmate or something?
Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
we, in terms of curating, like
Yeah.
we talk about stuff when we watch movies. Partly because I tend to overanalyze movies, even
Yeah.
Disney films, drives my family nuts. Like we were talking about Beauty and the Beast. I'm like, okay, all right, let's think about this for a second. They were cursed for 10 years.
Pause. Have you heard of Stockholm Syndrome?
I know. It's like, if they were cursed for 10 years and Chip is only 4, that means 5 years into this, Miss Potts would have gotten pregnant. But how? How? Like this, you can't think about it too much. Anyways, like I tend to overanalyze movies as it is. And so we'll talk about it. A lot of it is talking about like the things that I make comment of. But I mean, we've talked about this in the past, like watching like war videos or whatnot, and my son asking me like, "Are those the bad guys?" And we talk about situations like that. So we curate it in that we explain. We don't just like expose them to stuff without explanation. Like we explain, this situation is going on, and this is how this person feels, and this is how this person feels, so they can have, or at least try to develop some kind of empathy towards the story that's being told. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, definitely.
So, aside from movies, how about video games? Because video games are different in a lot of ways. At least I think they are.
Because you're in control.
Partially. Yeah, partially. And yeah, the immersion factor in a lot of the games is just different. Do you have a similar philosophy with video games as you do with like movies? In terms of like what you would, what you learn with your kids or what you allow them to play?
Oh,
I mean, for us, for me, my wife doesn't play video games, so it's a non sequitur for her. But like for me, I don't tend to play a lot of violent or gory or adult video games anyway. So
Borderlands doesn't count?
Huh?
Borderlands doesn't count?
Well, yeah, okay. There are some exceptions, like Borderlands.
Witcher? No, you don't play that.
My son doesn't. No, I don't play that.
Fortnite is violent.
Tomb Raider. Oh my gosh, Tomb Raider has become, cool, but still, like I'll play those games, but I don't know if I could, because there's no way to like turn stuff that you don't, because it's hard, because I'm like, I want you to experience this cool thing. This thing is so cool. I like it. I think it's cool. I want you to experience that cool thing. But there's all this stuff in there. I don't want it to be normalized, thinking, oh yeah, this is okay. Baba likes it, so that must mean that it's all right. No, I wish there was a way to like turn certain things off, which is never.
It depends on the developer. Sometimes you can, but
yeah. Like I've got like 5 God of War projects, and I really want to play God of War, but I am guessing that it is very not kid friendly.
Nope. Hyper violent and nudity.
Okay. So again, like, yeah. Maybe I'm just an overprotective dad.
No, I mean your kids are still fairly young though too. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
wouldn't
I
expect
mean,
anything
2
else
and
at this point in
6 and
time.
8. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's still for me. It's another similar experience as far as like wanting to curate the experience of them playing certain games. Like, I want to, oh, I'm excited to show you this game or this game, but I'm definitely in no rush to have them play Bulletstorm or Gears of War or Doom or anything like that. Like, there's so many game. Like, when I worked at Target and Best Buy, I sold so many copies of Grand Theft Auto to parents that I'm like, hey, you know what's in this, right? Oh yeah, my son really likes it, or really wants it. And sometimes it was clear that they knew. So it was clear sometimes that they didn't care. Um, I don't know.
I get that a lot from parents, and I see what the kids are allowed to play, and even like my son's friends who are his age that are roughly about 11 and 12 right now. And I know that each parent is responsible for their own kids and can make their own decisions, but man, I cannot get on board with so much of that. And what's really weird is I don't have, at least for me personally, this is not talking about what I except for my kids. I personally don't have any problem with violence for the most part. There's stuff that I don't care for, but I don't really have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with nudity or any adult content. Um, but video games are different to me for some reason, even in some of the violent aspect. Um, Grand Theft Auto, I've played and I do like some of it, but a lot of it I don't care for. I don't care for Call of Duty. I've never played Gears of War. God of War I've played. I thought it was okay. Fallout is hyper violent, and for some reason I'm okay with that one, but others I'm not. Um, so in terms of video games, I because the interactivity is different because you're not just passively consuming. Um, I try to watch that probably even more so. Luckily enough, my kids, and this is probably a byproduct of their upbringing, that they haven't shown an active interest in wanting to play those things yet. I'm sure it'll change. Adolescence changes a lot of that, but as of right now, my son does not want to play Fortnite. He has no interest in it. He has no interest in Call of Duty. He is all about, you know, Zelda, Minecraft, um, and some other like building type games. So,
Good quality content is what you're saying.
um, for right now,
Fortnite. I let my son play Fortnite, although I have to turn the audio, um, the chat off, because oh my gosh, it's so bad. It's so
and
bad.
that's one of the problems I have with some of the games too. It isn't even always just the game in and of itself. A lot of times it's the
It's the
culture
people
that
that play
rises
the
up.
game.
Well,
Ah,
so it's the people that play the game, the chat, all of that, but also the culture kind of that rises up and around it. Um, yeah, and some of that might even be a conversation for a whole nother show, especially like the predatory practices in some
yeah,
games right now.
but especially for like my daughter, because she likes games and she likes playing Fortnite. But there's, I'm just like, I I know my daughter will be okay. Like she'll be okay, but still, I don't want her to know how bad people are or can be, because I still want her to have faith in humanity. And it's hard to
Well,
do that when, an 11-year-old is talking about how he's going to rape your mom. And I'm just like, oh.
I mean, there's that, and that's not even necessarily what I was talking about. When I said predatory practices, I was talking about microtransactions and the
Oh,
addictiveness built into the game.
okay. That too. Yeah, I did. Apps on your phone? No, I don't let my kids play apps on the phone. For
My
that
kids don't
reason
own phones yet.
exactly. No, my kids aren't going to have phones till they're driving, till they have a car and they need a phone.
Yeah, that's
We
that's what I thought, but it's changing really quick, unfortunately.
we we made that decision a long time ago. We're like, nope.
Hopefully,
All
you're
right.
able to stick with it because we have not been able to. They don't own
I
phones
know.
yet, but we're gonna have to, unfortunately.
And honestly, like a lot can happen between now and then.
Yeah,
Phones
because
have progressed.
I was in the same boat, but begrudgingly, my wife and I are going to have to change that within the next year.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean the app thing will still be in place, but the phone thing is going to have to change, unfortunately.
What about music?
Yeah.
I don't know about music yet. Music is a really really tough one.
Yeah.
Luckily enough, we play a lot of like '80s music around here and soundtracks. My
It's pretty
daughter
benign.
listens to
Yeah.
yeah, my daughter listens to some like newer stuff, but it's really kind of kid bop-ish type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't had to really contend with any of the weird mess that is the music industry right now. My wife and I every Sunday morning used to put on Vivo on the Apple TV, and they'd play music videos. And on one hand, my wife and I would sit there and we'd watch it because we kind of like to know what is out in a sense. But some of the videos were so bad and the music was so bad that we had to stop doing it because our kids were getting older and starting to pay attention to things like, no, we can't even have this on in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, music is a tough one because I don't keep up with it enough, and I have no desire to keep up with it to monitor it. But luckily, my kids don't have open access anyways. I have an old iPod that I gave my daughter, so I know everything that is on that iPod, and that's her music that's been curated. So I keep a very narrow bandwidth right now. But once again, with adolescence and going to junior high and high school, I have no idea how that's going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, it sort of got brought up tonight and last night with my wife and I, regards to Samantha, because there's an artist that I really enjoy, that some people may be familiar with, Ben Folds. Anybody ever heard of Ben Folds?
Oh yeah.
He's like one of my top 5 artists. And I've exposed the kids to various songs of his that I have to carefully curate, for language purposes. But like he's like extremely talented, like musician in like lots of different ways, and he has some really awesome music. And she's into piano in the last several years, so there's like a connection there, right? And so he did like several live streams over the when the pandemic started, where he would do like little segments for like the kids to play along with him. He would actually teach different like things, for the different streams. So there's like, we really enjoy his stuff, but I have to be careful because he's got some songs that have some pretty harsh language in them, and it kind of, it's hard. For one thing, it's hard to know, like, for artists like that, like, is the value that you get from kind of like I think what one of you were saying earlier about like kind of like the filmmaking aspect, like the cinematography and the production value and all these things are like so good, like that overrides any other like negative things that might be otherwise like gleaned from the content, right? It's like, I think for him specifically, I think there's a lot more to be learned, and it's just the reason it came up is because he's starting to tour again and he's coming to Raleigh, and so we were wondering if we should get a ticket for Samantha to go see him, because she's been enjoying his music, and especially in a live show, you don't necessarily know what they're going to say before they say it. So we're sort of talking to her tonight about like trying to, like, she knows what curse words are and things like that, and trying sort of, how do you frame that in a way where, like, you know what they are, the bounds of when you're you're not supposed to use them, but especially in certain circumstances and things like that. And it's kind of hard to explain that things can still have value even though they have cursing and some of the other aspects of it. So it's sort of an interesting like minefield to sort of navigate through. And I think we're gonna probably still let her go with us, because she is with us, and that I think the positives outweigh the minuses. But it's just an interesting conversation that we have never had before.
Language is like one of the things that's a little bit different in my house. I don't censor language as much.
George Carlin, for instance, like, right? Like, are you gonna have your kids listen to them?
No, not any of that yet.
Yeah.
But I've let them listen to Jim Gaffigan, which he doesn't really use bad language, but
Sure.
it's still some very interesting humor at the same time. But my kids hear bad language from time to time. A word might slip in the house, or they might hear something on, in a movie or something. They're aware of what they are. They know that they're not allowed to say them. That's kind of where it stops. And it isn't even the bad language that I have an issue with. It's kind of like the quality of the language, or how it's being used sometimes. And I think that's where music is probably one of the biggest offenders, because I don't think it has a lot of musical merit, but that's just me. I'm not a musician. I don't have a lot of vested interest in it. I just don't think the value of it is as present there. Although you could probably make the same argument for some movies, but maybe it's just my personal bias. But language, since it's something more inherent to my profession, I don't know. It's not as restricted. Like I said, the kids aren't allowed to say the words, but they're probably a little bit more aware.
Yeah. My son recently got a cast on his hand. He broke his hand a couple weeks ago, and I'm probably framing the story wrong, but the gist of it I think will still come through. He was talking about after he got the cast, he wanted to he got tired of explaining the story of how the injury occurred to different people, this and that, and he was telling us how he didn't want to get in trouble or for saying the F word or something like that. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, Samantha said I shouldn't say, or what did he say? Someone said I shouldn't say the F word, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? He's like, yeah, fracture. And I'm just like, what? And it's just like, he's like, going almost like a 7-year-old. And just the way that things are formulated and the way like we're expecting things to come out aren't always the same thing. So it was just sort of funny. So we had to write that down. Like, Tim, the F word was fracture. It's like, what is the F word again? What?
That's funny.
How do you guys feel about, in once again, your kids may not be quite at this stage yet, but mine are. How do you feel about kids not using the actual word, but using a kind of like a word juxtaposed, like
fudge?
My son has been saying crud a lot, and he, or even they're not saying it, but they hear freaking from their friends, in place of the actual word. Is that something that you feel that you'd kind of clamp down a little bit too, because it's the intention?
Yeah.
Kind of the gateway in.
It is a gateway drug.
Because they'll hear me say crap a lot, but my son goes, nah. He goes, I like saying crud a little bit better because it sounds a little bit less offensive to him.
That's a good question.
We might have to revisit the topic in a year or two when it starts kicking in for the two of you.
I think it's all like context, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If Samantha
I don't want to
started screaming like, "Are you freaking kidding me? What the freak?" That that's a little too much. But
because my wife and I had also talked saying that we really don't want to limit self-expression too much. There has to be some sort of outlet of where you have some sort of verbal, response. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that's the job of the parent. Well, you could teach different ways of doing it. You could teach different phrases and different ways of outletting. So.
I don't know. Just for some context and perspective, I remember vividly that my grandmother would get upset when I was watching. This is like a whole generational thing, but like when I was watching cartoons growing up on Saturday morning, and like let's say on G.I. Joe, like Cobra Commander would call somebody a fool, or like Skeletor, "Oh, you fool!" Ah! Like fool was a bad word to her, and I remember her like, "You should not say that. Turn that crap off, or turn that garbage off, or whatever." Right? Like they said fool, and I'm just like, now I'm like, man, like in like the evolution of what is acceptable from like a cartoon like content perspective. Like Simpsons was the bad thing then, and then it was like Beavis and Butthead, and that was like horrible, and then it went like to South Park, and like the evolution of like what the next layer of like acceptability was, you know, Family Guy. And it's just like the kids ask like, "Hey, can we watch The Simpsons?" And I'm like, I want to say no because my grandmother didn't really like me watching The Simpsons growing up, but is it really that bad now? Maybe not. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
And there's so many ways of saying things are inappropriate that don't use any so-called bad words.
Sure.
And network TV has gotten really good at saying some really bad and really suggestive stuff without saying one censored word.
Like, I would think it'd be hilarious if my son went around saying "eat my shorts," to be honest. But like back in the '80s, like that was not acceptable. So I'm not sure.
Or
don't have a cow, man.
Who the hell are you?
Okay, maybe. Actually, yeah, a couple weeks ago, again with my son, he like I left the screen door open going onto the back porch, and we were like eating outside, and so like we were coming and going like from the kitchen to the back porch with like the outside like table and chairs, and he was just like, "Dad, shut the damn door," and we were like, "Whoa," because dude. He didn't say it in like an aggressive, mean way, but it was just like a phrasing that he had heard like in a show or a movie or something, like an Avengers movie or whatever. Like they say stuff like flippantly all the time in a lot of those. Like even Steve Rogers in the last movie, he's like, "Let's get that SOB," when before he was just like language. So it's just like program snippets, and he just pulled the wrong snippet out, and he didn't have any like. You know, like when a dog knows they did something bad, they had that look on their face. He had no concept of that was even remotely unacceptable, because we haven't said, like, you shouldn't say that. It never came up, right? We never had a list of, like, these are the words you can't say, like the 7 words you can't say on TV. We never had a list like that. So it's funny to see, like, kids, like, stumble into it accidentally and completely innocently. And we're just like, whoa, dude, you can't say that. What? Yeah, what you just said? Can't say that. Don't say that. Well, okay. It's hilarious. Anyways, enough about my bad parenting. What are you guys geeking out about?
I am geeking out about season 2 of Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. I absolutely loved the first season. I've only watched the two first episodes, or the first 2 episodes of the second season, and I absolutely love it. I love how inventive and creative the animation is and the style. The stories are just bite-sized enough that they're fun, and I absolutely love it. So I'm looking forward to watching the rest of them. How are you guys?
What do you know about Wes? I'm trying to think.
I'm still continuing the geek out from last week on DuckTales. I finally got to the 3rd season, and some of the stuff that they did at the end of the 2nd season was pretty amazing, especially with Darkwing Duck. It was pretty awesome. So if you haven't seen it, you like Darkwing Duck, watch the 2nd season of DuckTales. It's pretty cool. They explain why things are the way they are in the show. Like, because they have different voice actors for, like pretty much all characters in DuckTales, right, than what they were originally. And so, like, a lot of the fandom was, like, up in arms, like, oh, you changed the theme song, and you change, how dare you have a different voice for these characters, da-da-da. And when they introduced Darkwing Duck, they had the original voice, Jim Cummings is the voice artist, they had him in the show, but they explained it in a way that made sense, and they were actually poking fun at all the people that reviewed the first season of DuckTales. And they're like, oh yeah, well, of course all the fans are going to hate your voice, da-da-da-da-da. And like, oh, you changed it. You changed the thing I love. Nostalgia, this and that. And they were basically like ripping all the fans that didn't give the first season of DuckTales, didn't give it a chance. They ripped them a new one. Of course, they might not have ever seen the episode to get it, but since they never watched it to begin with, I understand that. But it was really cool. And the way they explained some things was really nice. And I'm just really digging that. Still,
I really thought it was funny that the voice actor for Huey, Dewey, and Louie in the old show is the voice actor for their mom when she was younger
that is
in this show. So it's bringing it back.
Yeah, I was like, is that the same
oh,
one?
this is full
I had to
circle.
look it
Yeah.
up, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's cool. Yeah, and it's really
Yeah.
clear, like a lot of the small little details that are easily missed. It shows like how much like attention and like love they have for like the property. It was cool.
Because we watched the new one first, and then I bought the movie for my kids for Christmas.
Yeah,
And they went and watched the movie. They're like, why are their voices all the same?
that's
how it used to be. Yeah,
that's funny. I even saw a Gargoyles reference. Finally, it was a really subtle one, but I appreciate it. The other thing that I'm geeking out about is there's a Facebook group. Let me pull it up real quick. Called Mechanical Adventures. Are you guys familiar with this?
So
Basically, it's a group that focuses on the processes and that are involved in making automata and automatons from new and recycled materials. And there's a guy that ran it for the last 13 years named Keith Newstead. And if you Google his name, Keith Newstead, and look up on his YouTube channel or just on Google itself, he is like prolific amount of content that he made, like all these mechanical wonder things, like just from a crank or a battery or a motor, and like the amount of animation that he's able to like pull out of little models and stuff that he created is like insane. And he created so many different ones, it's just like mind-boggling. Well,
what's his name again?
Keith Newstead, Newstead, and the group is called Mechanical Adventures. Well, I had been following the group. I've been on the group for a couple years, and I believe it was in November. He was the only administrator, and in November he passed away. And so since November, there hasn't been an administrator on there. So it had been and it's like a fully public group. I don't think there's any like filtering or like prerequisite or anything to prevent people from just going in there. And so it had been like inundated with people spamming stuff. And it was like bad, getting really bad. And so a couple days ago, I was like getting more upset that there's nothing like Facebook has some things it can do, but it's like you're dealing with Facebook and like having to deal with like, you know, ownership of pages that for deceased members, and like there's a whole thing, right? And basically nothing was happening. It's been this way since November. And so I actually looked up his obituary and found who his daughter was. Sounds a little creepy, but I looked her up on Facebook and sent her a message on Facebook, not expecting a response. I'm like, hey, your dad had this amazing group. You know, explain like, sorry for your, you know, being super cordial and all, you know, hey, I know I'm a random internet person. I'm not a creep, you know, and like if you want to, if you have interest in, you know, keeping your dad's like legacy alive through this group, which there's tons of fans and stuff in there that are constantly posting things, like this might be something you're interested in like fixing if you have access to his account. And she responded within like 24 hours and was like, oh, we didn't even know this group existed. There's like thousands of members in it, and somehow they didn't know. And so she was able to get access to his account and add herself as the administrator, and she added me as a moderator, which I thought was really cool. And so like now I'm like the sole other moderator on this group. It's got like almost 5,000 members, and it's like super inspiring and cool. So now I was able to go in there and like kick all these jerkwads out of there that were like posting all this like spam crap from other countries, and it was pretty bad. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. So
So you're spinning the spider web of Wes even further.
I am. I am. And apparently there's a convention or something that for Automata that's like in Maryland or New Jersey next year that's been postponed the last couple years. And come to find out the guy that hosts it is from like Raleigh. It's weird. And he knows several people that I know. So it's so weird. It's like a matrix network of connections that I had no idea that existed. But it's...
Hey, forget about Kevin Bacon. It's the 7 Degrees of West.
Yeah, we should play that sometime. But hopefully, I've got some ideas, and Donovan's aware of a few of them. I want to do some like automata kind of stuff for projects as well, so it leans into that. So I'm looking forward to exploring that.
I'm geeking out about events coming back this summer. Maker Faire, Maker Central, Workbench Con, a bunch of other events are coming back tentatively. Always subject to change, but as of right now, they're happening, and I'm trying to make plans to attend as many as I can. Especially now that I'm official, I need to make sure I do this right. So I've been geeking out about that.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to Workbench Con for sure.
Same here. Get to go for the first time.
Yeah, baby.
You want to go first, Wes, or do you want?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Did you guys know? You might not have known out there that we have a Patreon account at patreon.com/makinggeeks. And did you also know that we thank the highest patron members every time we record one of these episodes? We thank Square Splinter and Clinton from C3D Prop Shop and Jordan Rimple. You guys are awesome, and all of our patrons are awesome. We have a lot of cool perks for them. We're constantly thinking up more of them. If you want to help keep a show running, head over there and drop us $1 in the bucket. We appreciate it.
And you want to know who else is awesome? People that visit our website. You can go to makinggeeks.com and check out the contact page. You can get in contact with us and make suggestions for the show. You can listen to all of our past episodes right there on the homepage. And you can even visit our store and pick up some merch, so you can kind of help us promote Making Geeks and tell friends and just geek out with us. So they're at makinggeeks.com.
And what's even more awesome than that was fluid, is you can check out our individual stuff. I'm not on the ball. So if you want to see all the stuff that Sean is working on individually, you can check him out at Geek Builders. Wes and all of his robot creations that he's got going on right now, you can find at Geeksmithing. And you can follow along with my new adventure I'm going on. Gotta breathe. You can follow me at Once Upon a Workbench.
And we'd like to thank everybody hanging out with us in the live chat. It always makes the show even more enjoyable to do every Thursday. And speaking of the show, you can find new episodes of the show every Saturday morning on your favorite podcast player of choice. So from all of us to all of you, fantastic week.
See you guys.